Hello, everyone. Welcome to the stream. It is brought to you today by HelloFresh. So let's go ahead and show off some HelloFresh because it is actually a really good product. And then we'll get into this talk about contracts with one Adam Stern.
You already know that HelloFresh is America's #1 food delivery kit. But did you know that you can now customize your favorite dishes with HelloFresh's new Hello Custom offerings by swapping out one protein or side for another, upgrading for a more luxe experience, or even adding protein to a veggie meal? That means more choices, more variety, and more meals truly tailored to you. The name of the game is customization. With HelloFresh, it's easy to adjust your plan and increase your order size to help with meal planning for large groups or to have leftovers for lunch the next day. And as always, HelloFresh recipes include pre-portioned ingredients, and that means less prep time for you and less wasted food overall. The David Land Pit Crew is powered by HelloFresh this May. Go to HelloFresh.com and use the code LAND16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 surprise gifts. That's HelloFresh.com. Use the code LAND16 for 16 free meals and 3 surprise gifts.
Here we are. So, I would like to introduce, at this time, my guest, Adam Stern of the Sports Business Journal. We love having him on the channel because there is a lot to talk about. Tuesday, Adam, was one of the craziest days I've ever seen, and it looks like Friday won't quite top it, but there are quite a few things happening in the world of motorsports. What has been your impression of the last couple of days? Because this has been absolutely insane.
Yeah, I think obviously, today was, a regular day to a certain degree. Certainly some interesting news, but Tuesday was certainly extraordinary. To have two moves like that, where you basically have kind of two young aggressive owners in their respective series in NASCAR and IndyCar, making very bold moves that are upsetting the apple cart, with a very respected Hall of Fame owner on the other end, in what appear to be somewhat bitter disputes to varying extents. Not sure I've ever seen something quite like that, to have two things like that happen in one day. In certain regards, I'm not sure I've ever seen something like that happen, even on with each one of them. Like the statement from Richard Childress Racing was extraordinary. And obviously, like the Palou McLaren situation and Chip Ganassi is in certain regards very unique and extraordinary. So, the fact that they were both happening on one day was just insane.
Yeah. And so I guess where we'll start is because I think we only have you for about 30 minutes. So I'm going to try to move this along. The first thing I guess we'll talk about is the most recent thing, because it appears to be the least crazy, which broke today, which I believe it was you who broke this, was that Ty Dillon is moving on from Petty GMS Racing. And at the same time, there are some absolutely insane, I believe Hardy's initiated tweets from Richard Petty that a lot of people are getting confused and thinking it has something to do with Ty Dillon. First of all, what do you know about this situation with Ty Dillon and Petty GMS? And I think you also said that Noah Gragson is the front runner for the 42 car next year.
Yeah, obviously, Ty and Petty GMS, they haven't just gelled perfectly this year. There haven't been amazing results really behind his starts. So it looks like the team wants to go in a different direction for next year. Pretty much as simple as that. Obviously Ty has bounced around a couple different teams in his career, a couple different cars, a couple different series. So unfortunately for him, it looks like that's going to happen again. And we'll see, of course, if it gets confirmed. But at this point, it does sound like Petty GMS is eyeing Noah Gragson. I don't think anything is signed by any stretch, but that seems to be who they have their eyes on. So, keep your eye on that situation and to see if that gets confirmed eventually. But, some movement there for sure. Some further movement in NASCAR silly season with that.
So the first thing I thought when I saw this was that, and I could be totally wrong, and you can go ahead and correct me if you think I'm wrong, because I think these discussions are always so much fun, because one of the things that I like to do is speculate on these things and kind of make educated guesses. It would seem as though there's an open seat potentially down the line, if not next year, but certainly in 2024 at Richard Childress Racing. Do you see a possibility where the Dillon brothers are teammates again?
No, I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, obviously, I think the first thing to keep an eye on, and I've seen a couple other people reference this, and I think it's exactly right as far as a situation to keep an eye on. With that is, is Tyler Reddick going to return in 2023? To Richard Childress Racing? Obviously, he's contracted to, and they picked up the option, but that was before all this happened. The team basically got blindsided by this. They had no idea till, probably, certainly from what I understand, like the day of, if not, maybe 30 minutes before, something like that, maybe a couple hours before, that this was going to get announced. So, from that regard, they're still probably, obviously you could tell that statement, was pretty much directly from Richard Childress. He was extremely mad. So first they got to figure out, are they still going to keep him from next year? If they don't, obviously they'd probably have to pay him his salary, because it's not like, they didn't, it seems like Tyler Reddick and his people were, doing things by the book in terms of contractual moves. I think the only thing that's really was controversial here was announcing it. When you talk to people in the garage, some people felt like it was a little bit foul how this went down, but they didn't feel like it was foul in terms of Tyler Reddick being in talks about 2024. They just felt like 2311 shouldn't have announced it. That's not everybody. That's just some people, the people who are maybe on the side who are criticizing how this went down. But in any event, because of all that, because of all the hurt feelings, the first thing to keep an eye on is whether Tyler Reddick will return next year. If he does, then obviously there's still an opening, like you said, for 2024 at a minimum. So it will be interesting to see what happens there. Of course, they've got an Xfinity program. You've got Austin Hill in it. They've got 2 cars. So, do they do one of those guys? Could they bring Ty Dillon back? I would think not. I mean, I would think, there's still so many other prospects that you could potentially call on, bring in. I mean, you look even like a guy like Eric Jones. He's currently at Petty GMS, but he's very highly touted. And a lot of people have been wondering if he could maybe, move up a level. Now, granted, with the next gen car, and the fact that NASCAR is now a spec series, you see like Trackhouse step in, they're doing amazing. So I'm sure Petty GMS would love to talk to Eric and say, hey, that's not really a step up anymore going to RCR. They would probably argue that, but RCR would probably argue they are a step up. So you could look at a guy like Eric Jones to, watch out for maybe in the coming years, to maybe go to RCR potentially. He would be one option. But I mean, obviously if they do keep Tyler Reddick for next year and he's back for all of next season, then you would think that they're still some ways off probably from deciding who will be in the car for 2024, because it's just, there's so much that would need to play out before you would have a good idea of who'd be available for the 2024 market.
And that was what was so crazy. And it's funny listening to you describe the RCR situation. It sounds very, very similar to what was with Alex Palou. You had an extra option year, which the driver didn't want to take. But I think what was really crazy in the RCR situation was that, I guess it's a press release if you release it on Twitter. The statement that they released on Twitter, like you said, that seemed like it came directly from the mouth of Richard Childress. The last line in particular, the timing could not have been worse. That's one of the most damning statements I think I've ever seen released officially by a team. What do you think they meant by that? I mean, it certainly seems to me like they don't have a whole lot of options as soon as 2023, especially if they decide that, being with Tyler Reddick for an extra year isn't going to be helpful for anybody. Because I'm sure that, when these sort of things happen, because when they do happen, you keep those drivers out of those engineering meetings, and it hurts the team entirely because you don't want to be sharing trade secrets with your competition. So what do you think then they meant by that, or at least Richard Childress meant by that last statement, that the timing couldn't be worse? Was it just the fact that they left him so late?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was, again, a statement of someone who had just found out about this first and foremost and probably hadn't even had a chance to sleep on it. So first and foremost, I think this was a statement of a team that, didn't have a chance to sleep on what they were going to say. Obviously, usually if you see the sun go down, and then the next day you see the sun come up, and then you get to think about it again, you might say something different. I don't think that got to happen here. So that'd be the first thing I'd say. But in terms of the actual timing itself, I don't think it's necessarily the worst timing in terms of impact. But the one thing that possibly I could think of is like sponsorship plans. If they're still working on some sponsorship plans, those could, this could, make it haywire, trying to figure that out. So, if they don't have all their sponsorship locked up for 2023, obviously this could affect that. Or even if they do, theoretically, obviously they're still going to have to go back to their sponsors and talk to them about this situation and make sure everyone's still on board. And again, we still have to make sure that Tyler's coming back next year. There's no definite indication by any stretch yet that he's not yet, but it's not a sure thing either that he is. So I think just in terms of the fact that they were probably trying to finalize their 2023 plans, or try and land some new sponsors, maybe even still for 2023. And, obviously now this is going to be chaotic for those efforts. So that could be the one thing. But outside of that, I think it's just the fact that they were still in season so far in advance. We're not even at the 2023 season yet. So the fact that they were announcing something about 2024, I think it's just so far in advance that it was just kind of seen as like a little bit unorthodox, but at the same time, I think from 2311's perspective, they could very rightly argue that, hey, look, we didn't do anything wrong. And, we signed this deal. We don't want it to leak out to, let someone else control the narrative. We want to control the narrative ourselves because we just did this deal. And so therefore we're just going to announce it now. So it was definitely a little bit bold by 2311, but I could see their justifications and why they did it. So yeah, I think Richard was obviously extremely upset. Richard Childress was extremely upset. And I think that was part and parcel of that statement. Beyond the timing, of sponsor talks and things like that, I'm not sure how much it really messes things up beyond. I guess you could also say, does it hurt the chemistry of the team? But it would hurt them, if they announce in the off season of, upcoming, this upcoming season, they're still going to have a full year where the pit crew would know all next year that he's leaving. So they had to announce it at some point.
Sure, and that's kind of my next thought. We've said the number 23 a lot, but not necessarily in the context of 2311 in this situation. And I think that's the other interesting angle to look at this from, is that 2311 right now has 3 drivers potentially heading into on the books heading into 2024. Now, looking at how the last few weeks have gone for 2311 and really this year, and in particular some of the statements that were made right after the signing of Tyler Reddick, am I outside of the realm of possibility? Because the team was pretty clear in their statements that Kurt Busch can drive for that team as long as he wants to. He's not necessarily going to be forced into retirement, at least from what the statements that they are making. Tyler Reddick is one of the hottest prospects in NASCAR Cup Series racing. You now have him under that umbrella. At the same time, Bubba Wallace, in a lot of ways, maybe underperforming a little bit. His pit crew's been changed. That was the big complaint. Performance-wise, there has been some friction there, it seems like. There have been some wars of words in the media between Wallace and Denny Hamlin, the team owner. My interpretation of this, when I kind of looked at it and saw it, and all the statements that have been made around that team the last couple of weeks, is Bubba Wallace on the hot seat there? Because I can't see a situation where they buy another charter. I mean, could they go to a 3-car team? I don't know if that's likely.
They could go to a 3-car team, but at the same time, they've currently said that it's unclear. They say that they're still, figuring out that they just wanted to sign Reddick and then they'll go from there. I think every single option's in play. I mean, certainly, obviously, a Kurt Busch retirement is possible by that time. Mm-hmm. That's clear. He's pretty much the oldest driver still in the Cup Series, I think. So,
yeah. Oh, easily.
Right. So that's obviously an option. To your point, I mean, Bubba, only has 1 win still. So that's probably not what they wanted. And he's not in the playoffs at this point. But, they do also legitimately, and it is legit that he has had a lot of issues with his pit crew this year. And they definitely believe that. So, I'm sure he's going to be back next year. So to your point, 2024, it could be anything. It could be a retirement for Kurt Busch. If Bubba continues to underperform and can't get any wins, and even he has a perfect pit crew and everything, and he's still not winning, and Toyota cars are doing extremely well beside him and he's not winning, then yeah, he could be replaced. But I do think, them buying a third charter is also an option. It's a little bit interesting because, Denny's come out and said that he's not going to invest in anything else until, they figure out what's going on with the next TV deal and whether their economics are going to improve as, a team and team owners. But from what I hear, actually, he's still out there looking for a third charter, as are some others. So we'll see what happens there. But I do think a third car is a possibility.
Yeah, that's what's been so wild about this charter business is that I think even Dale Jr. has expressed interest in purchasing a charter or possibly even creating some sort of an expansion charter. I think he said that on the Justin Marks Dale Jr. download. How realistic do you think it would be for NASCAR if demand is there, would be to increase the number of charters in the sport? Do you think that's a realistic possibility?
Technically, yes. It's part of the charter agreement. There's a clause within the charter agreement currently where there's like mechanisms by which they can expand the charters to 40 from 36. I think I don't know if it requires, I forget if it's like unanimous agreement between everyone involved or a majority or 2/3, something like that. But there's some mechanism by which if they get proper agreement from when they all, said what the agreement was when they first, put this into, when they first passed the charter system, then yes, they could technically go to 40. But I don't think it's likely before 2025. I still think you've got enough kind of, owners in the sport that, people in the garage, people at NASCAR don't feel are, necessarily top level. Still think there's some back markers, so to speak, and things like that. So until you don't have, until you get rid of, and especially when you have quote unquote back markers that have like 2 charters, things like that. Now, obviously with the next gen car, and we have a spec series now, some of these teams are performing better, which is great. And some of them want to do much better, which is great. But I still don't think we're at the point yet where they're going to expand the charters. I could be wrong. I definitely don't know that for sure. I mean, it's possible that they're looking at it, but I would think that, the system seems to be working right now to the extent that if you look at it, one of the major goals of the charter system was to help the team owners who are going out and leaving, leave with value. And these charters are going up in prices big time. It was only a handful of years ago when they were worth like $5 to $7 million. Then last year, 23XI broke the record by spending like $13.5 million. Right now, from what I understand, 13.5 would be a bargain. You can't get it, the price is way up from that right now.
Wow.
So these things are just going up in price. So that's what the system was designed for. So I don't see why they would mess with it right now and try and dilute the charters. It seems like that would be self-defeating. So I don't see that happening right now.
It's interesting, that business model, because Formula One is very much a closed-door society now as well. And I don't know if you've heard the same thing, but I guess I'll drop a little bit of a bombshell here. I've heard that IndyCar is looking at potentially adopting some sort of a charter system. Do you see that? Do you see that sort of do you see this business model truly kind of being the same or the preferred business model across top-level motorsport that haven't adopted it yet? Do you see like IndyCar, the NHRA, or even IMSA adopting something like this in the future?
I think if memory serves, I might have asked Mark Miles about that once, the IndyCar CEO, and he basically said like, look, we've considered and we'll continue to consider all sorts of scenarios, but he said like nothing was imminent with that. But of course, IndyCar already has the Leader Circle program, somewhat comparable to a charter, but definitely not the exact same. So I think it's possible, but obviously that's not the only thing IndyCar needs to work on. I mean, you got to have. It's just like with NASCAR, of course. One things that has been interesting about the charters, of course, is like some people have blamed the charters in certain ways, but the thing about the charter is that it's more about, the charter can only do so much. You have to fix the overall business model. So, if teams are losing money then of course the charter is not going to appreciate in value. It's just like, the reason that it costs so much to buy a stick and ball franchise is because you profit a lot of money automatically. You can't lose money pretty much because you just have so much coming in through media revenue centrally from the league. And so, all those stick and ball teams pretty much, profit. And obviously, if they spend too much on team, players or something goes awry with an investment, of course they could lose money. But especially when we talk about like the NFL, for sure. I mean, all those NFL teams are profiting because they're making so much money from TV revenue. So, that's what teams are trying to get to a similar level, right? With these talks, they're trying to, hopefully in their eyes, increase the amount of pie that's going to come to them from the next TV deal. And that'll help if you can fix that business model to where, now you're making money by being a NASCAR team owner instead of losing money, then the charters are going to go up in value. So, it's not that the charters themselves were ever the issue, really. It's the business model. So it'd be the same thing for IndyCar. Like, you can add a charter system, but you still have to have the value there to make people want to invest in being an IndyCar team owner to make it worthwhile.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And they've still got a long way to go. Well, I guess we'll have to see what these Peacock numbers do this weekend. I think they would be happy with probably 50,000, because I think the highest they had prior to the Indy 500, which of course the Indy 500 you almost have to throw out as a completely separate event when you talk about IndyCar ratings. I think it was 20,000 or thereabouts for St. Petersburg. So thinking a Peacock exclusive race, I guess you'd hope you'd double it, but I guess we'll have to wait and see on that one. And it should also be noted that the leader circle is very much performance based. It's really just kind of like a replacement for prize money in some ways. I think only it's the top 21 or 24 teams that actually get it. So there actually are some teams that don't have any or don't get any major amounts of money, prize money from the league at the end of the season. And so from that perspective, the business model still doesn't make any sense to me. The closer I get to it, as I keep saying, the less I understand it seems. Let's talk about IndyCar, because I'll just say this is the best thing that's happened to IndyCar. These last couple of weeks with all this drama has been the best thing outside the Indy 500 to happen to IndyCar in several years, because we're actually talking about it. There's heroes and there's villains, and people are picking sides, and none. I haven't seen a contract dispute quite this crazy, at least in my lifetime. I know some people have mentioned Jenson Button with BAR and Williams at the time back in 2005, but I was like 12 years old and I wasn't paying much attention to contracts. But as Connor Daly said, when you sign those papers, they're supposed to mean something. So how did we get into a situation, Adam, where Alex Palou is essentially signed for two different teams, Chip Ganassi Racing and Arrow McLaren SP, at one time? Or not Arrow McLaren SP, McLaren. You gotta make that distinction, because there was no mention of Arrow McLaren SP in that press release. So my speculation has been that he may end up with a Formula One career out of this. But how is this even possible? Is Zach Brown playing 4D chess, or does Chip have all the cards? What's your assessment of this situation?
Well, first and foremost, I would say that it's a good time for NASCAR to have a docuseries, and it's a bad time, unfortunately, for IndyCar not to have a docuseries in the works. So, I mean, a lot of people haven't been talking about it, but you'll hear more about it in the coming weeks. It has been officially announced. NASCAR does have a docuseries coming later this year. Oh, wow. Like, Drive to Survive. It's been announced. It's just not a lot of people pay attention. There's going to be more coming out about in the next couple of weeks. Unfortunately, of course, IndyCar does not have one, I believe, in the works currently. I mean, they're trying to do one, but it's not currently being shot. Like NASCAR's one being shot. So, it'd be a great time, of course, for IndyCar to have had a Drive to Survive, style thing going on right now. Just incredible drama, as you said. How did we get here? I mean, I don't have all the facts, but there's certain things we can tell. We know that there was rumors for months that Palou was looking at going to McLaren. I was hearing those myself when I went to Indy, for the Indy 500. So those have been out there for some time. Obviously it doesn't seem like McLaren would make an announcement like this unless, Alex Palou was really trying to go there, right? And he made that clear. He's trying to go there. So it seems like this is just some, I don't know what happened with Chip Ganassi. We'll have to wait till, hopefully the man himself, Chip Ganassi, will eventually address it. But it seems, best I can tell, like this is some sort of contract dispute. And it seems like the public announcements, including Chip Ganassi Racing's initial announcement that they were extending him, are part of the, posturing around this dispute. So, does Chip Ganassi, whether, the man or the team and its lawyers, feel like McLaren did something wrong, and as part of proving that in court, they were going to announce first that they had extended him? Or, is it not about that, but they just feel that by having announced that, they can, somehow extract concessions financially out of McLaren? We have to wait and see. I can't say myself because I don't know for sure, but clearly there's a lot of posturing going on, and it appears to be almost like, preparing for legal maneuvering. And these are some of the like initial, shots. So, obviously it could maybe just get resolved through, a handshake agreement, or probably more likely like arbitration. Theoretically, it even be, could be a straight lawsuit in a court of law, civil law. But yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how it plays out, because it seems like there's a significant dispute. One thing I found interesting is I never really saw anyone before this, say that Chip Ganassi and Zach Brown hate each other. But
right,
just within the past couple of days, there's been a couple of reports where people have said, hey, did you know that Chip Ganassi and Zach Brown hate each other? So now that's out there too. I mean, that's amazing to hear. And obviously those are just reports, and that's just a paraphrase. I mean, that might be a little bit harsh to say hate. Of course, hate's a harsh word. So maybe, they just don't get along well, might be a better way to put it. But clearly, there's antipathy towards each other, it seems like, with how this happened. I know McLaren was surprised with what happened. They were flabbergasted, with what happened. But, look, maybe Chip Ganassi Racing is flabbergasted with something McLaren did, right? So that's why until we all, hear from all the key players on the record, whether it's in a court of, law or what have you, civil law, et cetera, or through interviews, we don't have the full story yet. So it's tough to really say. But clearly, I think these announcements were part of, posturing around what could be some sort of, legal dispute.
Now, Alex Palou refused to comment. To his credit, he actually did show up at the media bullpen in Toronto today and did speak not only to the media assembled there, but obviously spoke to NBC. Again, he did not say anything. Adam, I remember a piece of advice you gave me a long time ago was to look at people or who drivers are represented by. And in the course of the conversations I've had with folks about this behind the scenes, it's been the question that's come up a couple of times is like, what was his management thinking? Because I know Scott Dixon is on record essentially saying this was the wrong way to do it. I looked it up, and his management team is one I had not heard of before. They also manage only a couple of drivers. One of them is Pascal Wehrlein, who used to be a Formula One driver. I believe it's called something like Monaco International Management or something. Have you heard of that company, or do you have any kind of insight to them and where they come from, who they're run by? Because for the longest time, I think a lot of us thought that Palou was under kind of the Stefan Johansson management side that so many Ganassi drivers are, but apparently that's not the case.
Yeah, great question. I don't have the full answer there, but it does seem like there's something going on there. Like, it sounds like he changed agents recently.
Now that's a bombshell. That's a big part of this, I think. For sure.
No, and I think that might have been reported as well by Nathan Brown. I think it might, and we'll have to double check, but I believe there's been some sort of agent movement. At some point, I'm not exactly familiar with that agent, so I can't tell you too much about him. I have heard just in the past couple of days people talking about him, but I don't really know much about him myself. But yeah, I mean, look, I think at the end of the day, agents they do what their clients want. So. Obviously you got to have good agents. to do good things. But at the end of the day, if Alex Palou is going to McLaren's because he wanted to go to McLaren, so. You want to, obviously you got to have an agent that wants to, work with you, wants to help you out. And so I don't know exactly what's going on with all that. In terms of a potential change and who his current guy is and, how much impact he could have had. But at the end of the day, as you said earlier, McLaren didn't announce exactly what he's going to do next year. Well, that's just because they have, just a wealth right now of opportunities. They're in all these different series. Zach Brown has built up quite a roster right now. I've seen some suggestions that maybe they didn't mention it because part of the dispute could be that Chip Ganassi has the rights to Alex Palou and IndyCar only for next year. So therefore they can't mention anything about IndyCar, and maybe he'll have to just do, testing in F1 next year, things like that. Maybe he could appear in their new Formula E team or something like that as well. So, we'll have to see. But yeah, obviously agents do play an important part. So whatever the full story there, again, there's still a lot more to unpack. And I look forward to, either figuring out myself or hearing from other reporters who get that stuff. But at the end of the day, I think obviously, you saw Will Power say it himself. Will Power a couple days ago said, man, I wish I had Zach Brown around when I was young. What Zach Brown is offering right now is tough to turn down for these drivers. Saying, hey, you can come test a Formula One car and you can kind of flirt with all of the great growth that Formula One is seeing around the world, including in the U.S. So as much as agents probably played a part, at the end of the day, I'm sure Alex Palou clearly was first and foremost the one who said, hey, I want to go to McLaren. And whether he contacted Zach Brown first or not, clearly he wants to go to McLaren.
Yes, and that was the thing that I keep coming to the conclusion to, is that I don't see a situation in which Alex Palou blew this Chip Ganassi deal up this publicly and this kind of this spectacularly if there wasn't a Formula One potential on the table right now. I in fact talked to an agent friend of mine and I said, what would you try to get out of this situation? Because clearly there would be a lot of money on the line as well if we're talking about a Formula One seat. I heard the number $7 million thrown around, $7 million per year, which I thought was kind of interesting because that's about $3 million less than Daniel Ricciardo. But Alex Palou is not a proven Formula One driver. He's never driven a Formula One car before. Did have a super chat from Irvin. I don't want to forget that real quick. If Palou's contract dispute goes to court, we will need one judge to settle it, Judge Judy. She will solve the dispute quick before the season or lunch. Well, thank you.
Well, she's an arbitrator, so it could be Judge Judy because it could go to arbitration as opposed to.
That's our reality show. We'll just get it on Judge Judy. That just one episode.
Make Judge Judy part of the IndyCar Drive to Survive.
It'll be the pilot episode. Oh,
she'll be an official, she'll have the comments on the side and kind of this is what I was thinking during this part type thing. So that'd be cool. It does sound like IndyCar has been working on landing a Drive to Survive. So they're not just sitting on their thumbs with that, but obviously you'd love to have it already filming this weekend.
Here's my problem with that, Adam. Is it too late? Because I've noticed that it seems like the general public, or at least the people who got into Formula One,
no, just stop.
What's up?
It's not too late. It's not too late.
You don't
it's
think
not
so?
Too late.
Because it looks like people are turning on it. That's what I kind of see right now.
Look, even Max Verstappen just said he's back in. You know what I mean? So
is he? God.
Yeah. Max Verstappen said he spoke with the producers and they're figuring it out. And obviously, we know people really follow the driver. So I think that should help some of the criticism. But overall, look, I think it's a really interesting topic right now about and I think this is one of the most interesting topics in racing. The quote unquote, is it going to be a rising tide lifts all boats, or is it going to be a zero-sum game as it relates to Formula One's growth in America? So I think that that's something to really keep an eye on. I think that's a really interesting topic, and it plays right into that. So, yeah, I think at IndyCar, F1 has seen such amazing growth from Drive to Survive, and it's still too early to say hey, it's too early to say that F1 fans are not going to watch IndyCar. There very well could be new F1 fans who end up liking IndyCar. So I think you got to still try to do something like a Drive to Survive. I think there's people who absolutely would be interested in it on the right platform and things like that. So, and of course, you've got your avid fans who would be interested in it and have been asking for it. So you almost have to do it, even just for your avid fans, of course, let alone the potential of, hey, it's too early to know whether we can't get any F1 fans. Maybe we still can get some F1 fans to come and join us, and we'll have a rising tide lifts all boats situation. So I think you got to do it still. But yeah, I mean, obviously there has started to be some pushback. Is Drive to Survive going to last for 20 seasons like Big Brother has? I saw Big Brother still on. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah, right.
So, I mean, I don't know if, 20 years from now or 15 years from now, Drive to Survive will still be on, but I still think there's still more juice left to squeeze, and I think IndyCar's got to do it.
Well, there you go. I don't know, because that's the thing with IndyCar is I don't know if there is a magic bullet. I worry that they look at a Drive to Survive and think it's a magic bullet. The thing with F1 that I see is that F1 has the base built. They had the house built before they started moving people into it. I almost feel like even if IndyCar did have a Drive to Survive, they'd be putting people onto a block of concrete that maybe has a frame built, but it doesn't have any kind of amenities. It doesn't have any way to kind of engage IndyCar. Doesn't really have a way to engage an audience past just the races. There's not a video game. The social media isn't great. The community itself is pretty fractured, and it isn't really, I'll just say it's not very welcoming in a lot of ways. How does IndyCar overcome all of those other things? Again, to me, I don't think they've done enough building on its core business to sustain a Drive to Survive. Do you kind of feel that or see that?
Yeah, I mean, Drive to Survive can work just from the product on the track, and having a good product on the track and having, some drama, so I think that could work. But clearly IndyCar still has a long way to go in terms of building out, its entire, infrastructure and all of its products and all of its offerings, all of the sponsors that they could possibly land. They're focused on trying to land more business to consumer brands. You look at what Hy-Vee's doing and what they're doing next week at Iowa Speedway, fantastic, but you need more brands like that, and they'd be the first to tell you that. So, yeah, IndyCar still, of course, has a lot of work to do. One of the things about IndyCar that of course, is tough is Roger Penske bought the series literally a few months before COVID hit the world. And, that was such a brutal financial hit. And so it's gone into a little bit of a tough cycle where, it's tougher, when you buy a new property, anything, you want to make money off of it. You definitely don't want to lose money off of it. And so, right off the break, he was losing money on this huge investment that's well into the 9 figures, basically $300 million investment from what we understand. Mm-hmm. And, he has to hold the first ever Indy 500 without fans. I mean, the Indy 500 funds the entire IndyCar series. Not only, that's not the only revenue stream, but it's a huge revenue stream towards the entire series this season. So the problem is it's gotten to a tough cycle where it's I feel like it might be, he's obviously done a good job, Mr. Penske has, in investing in upgrading, Indianapolis Motor Speedway, making it super pristine. It looks like a, really nice golf course now almost, all around the place. That Augusta National field to a degree, the grass is perfect, all that stuff. But, there's still a lot to do from a series perspective. And some of that series perspective stuff costs a lot of money. And so, yeah, that's the problem is right when they had a new owner who might have been preparing to spend a lot of money, he started losing money right off the break because of the pandemic. And now you have to get out of that cycle. How does he get to the point where he can start spending a lot of money on marketing the series again? How do we get there? He's got to find a financial path. So it's got to make some sort of sense. So it's a little bit, of a tough situation right now, but obviously IndyCar is doing all they can. I mean, all the people are working hard, and there's a lot of good things still happening. We do have the video game coming, as that's coming. And again, I think they're working on the docuseries. They've got some good sponsors coming in. You need more. Hy-Vee's been fantastic, and we'll see how next week goes, but they've been, pretty much a home run. It's just, you almost would expect them to add an official league partnership at some point here. So, yeah, still a lot for IndyCar to do. You're exactly right. But, they're working on it slowly but surely, and they had a tough hand with the pandemic.
I'll tell you that stock price in Motorsports games doesn't make me too confident in that video game. I hope so, but I'll tell you they and not to keep you too long. I know we're kind of getting up against the time limit here, but I don't know if you went over there and checked that out at Indianapolis. They advertised it as being a preview of the new game, and it ended up being their other product, R Factor 2. And there's been a lot said about the how solid that company is, and how much work may or may not be done. That game's supposed to launch in 2023. Certainly in May of 2023, I believe. The reviews for NASCAR Ignition were not good. I would say, at least from what I know, I'm pretty nervous about that game actually making it to market. But I don't know. That worries me a little bit.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, Motorsports Games has had some issues for sure. So, NASCAR, IndyCar, they're both aligned with them, right? So they both need them to do well. It seems like there's been good reviews for F1's new game with EA Sports, and it's important. I mean, it's a great way to grow your sport with, young kids, young folks, and people who may not be in the, motorsports super hardcore, but they like video games. They like the idea of testing out different games, and they'll give this a try. You want it to be good. You want it to be, realistic and all that stuff. So I definitely know what you mean. I didn't get to test out the game myself or anything like that. I did see that they had that activation at Indy. I saw that they were doing a bunch of recording of, industry people to get them included in the game, which is cool. So that'll be cool to see. But yeah, it's definitely important for IndyCar because obviously it's been quite a while since they had a video game. So as you know, as with any property, not just IndyCar, the last thing you want to do is go a while without having a video game, then you finally have it and it's not good. So
right.
It's very important for them to get this right. And your skepticism is probably justified, I would say, at this point. To your point, the games that they've had with NASCAR have not necessarily been slam dunks, unfortunately. So, whether you're talking about sales, whether you're talking about reviews, any metric you really want to use. So it's an important initiative for IndyCar, and you hope they get it right.
Well, Adam, plug your stuff. I think most people know where to find you, but if not, let them know right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Sportsbusinessjournal.com. Check us out. Got a lot of good stuff going on there. So much going on in sports business. It's crazy. A lot of it impacts motorsports in different ways. We cover motorsports there a lot too. And on Twitter at @A_S12. So, appreciate you having me on. It was fun.
Absolutely. Thanks. And you're invited anytime. Certainly one of the best in the business. I would say the best in the business when it comes to the business side of racing. Adam Stern, thank you so much for coming on.
And thank you.
All right. So we'll continue on here. I guess I'll hang up on Adam if he doesn't hang up on himself. We'll leave the meeting. There we go. Okay. We'll continue with my side of the stream here for a little while. But yeah, thank God for Adam Stern. Great guy. Did have a super chat from Gulano 8848, who says Alex was represented by a Japanese agent he met in Japan while in Super Formula. He was trying to close a deal with Monaco management, but he couldn't, so he had no other option than part ways with Alex. Interesting. So let's bring myself back up onto the screen. There I am. And I'm just going to interact with the chat here for the next 9 minutes. So if you want to send super chats, go for it. If not, I'll just kind of talk with you guys here on the chat. Now, IndyCar was in Toronto today. There was the first practice session, topped by Alexander Rossi. Simon Pagenaud was second, and Graham Rahal was third. So kind of crazy that we had essentially a 2019 top three for a track that they haven't raced at since 2019. But full coverage of that as the weekend goes on. Unfortunately, it's still where you have the Saturday practice where it's just one practice in the afternoon, and it's kind of, not that great. How many people do we even have watching? We have 458 people watching. Thank you, guys. If you are enjoying the stream, like it. I know people really enjoyed the Alex Palou stream. That was absolutely insane the other day. But Yeah, I felt like doing another stream, especially with Adam Stern of the Sports Business Journal, because he, like I said, he's the best in the business when it comes to the business side of racing, and it's great to have that connection, be able to talk to him about that, because he's on top of the ball. There's no other guy on Twitter, I think, in the motorsports community that has more people who follow him, have the notifications on, than Adam Stern. First time of this year that David isn't at the racetrack for IndyCar. Yes. However, I thought about this because I was like, is this, when I watched on Peacock today, I said, is this the first time I've watched a practice session all year? Which is not actually true, because for Texas, I was in Sebring for an IMSA race, and I missed a couple of days of IndyCar at Texas, but I did end up making it to the race on 2 hours of sleep after the 12 hours of Sebring. Was it Stern or Slurn? Well, we certainly were discussing enough stuff with enough strong facts and logic that I think it was Stern, not Slurn. We need Alex Palou in F1 so bad. Well, I think you're going to get Alex Palou in Formula One, whether it's next year or whether it's the year afterwards. David, what did you do? Are you not allowed to travel out of the country? No, what it came down to was ultimately a business decision. I mean, a lot of those flyaway races are very expensive, and if you haven't noticed, inflation is quite high right now. I had been traveling to probably 10 or 12 races already this year, all across the country. When I looked at it, and this was before the Alex Palou thing broke. Had the Alex Palou thing broken, or I knew it was going to break weeks in advance, I would have probably gone to Toronto. But at the end of the day, spending a whole lot of money to go out there for a Peacock race that maybe 50,000 people are going to see, I didn't necessarily see the ROI on that, especially when I'm going to go to Iowa next week, and then obviously we come back here to Indianapolis for the Brickyard, and then it's a pretty fast stretch. There are some things that I want to do, not to get too deep into the business, but there are some changes I'm going to make on the business side of things. It won't affect the content any, I don't think, but considering the economic position that we're going to, I think, be in for a couple of weeks and months and years, just making it more of a smart way of doing things. And remember, this is essentially the first year that I've been on the road the entire year, covering races. So I'm still figuring it out, but I wouldn't have it any other way, trust me. Got a couple of super chats, several super chats. What the heck is I don't know what denomination that is, but it's 125 of it, from Kawashi, who says, I think there are rumors of a Vettel retirement. There are rumors of a Vettel retirement. Do you see an IndyCar driver? Do you think an IndyCar driver will take over his seat if it does happen? An IndyCar driver going to Aston Martin, I don't see that. I think it's possible. Anything's possible. But I don't even know who's in that Aston Martin development program, to be quite honest. I guess it's Mercedes driver development program, wouldn't it be? Do they run Mercedes in it? So I don't know. I don't actually know if they have a driver development program or not. Alex Viveros says, I feel we will get a Motorsports sign and trade where Chip gets Danny plus the money from the Alex contract. I don't think Ricardo is going to come to IndyCar. I think I said that yesterday. I just don't see that. Alex Left says, bit off topic, hypothetical question. If you had a time machine, which old race would you go to? There's like a case to be made for like the 1911 Indy 500. I would like to see a 60s F1 race would be awesome to go to. A 2001 NASCAR race would be awesome to go to. That's not the Daytona 500. I think I'd like to go see a kart race. From like the 93 to 2002 era. Well, I don't really care. It'd probably be a Michigan 500. I would just like to see those cars at 250 miles an hour. Unless Stroll sells the team. Well, yeah, that could be. That's a possibility. There's no doubt about it. Wow, Peacock paying for ads. Yeah, it's a Peacock exclusive race this weekend for IndyCar. So they drew the short straw. Even IMSA's on TV with Lime Rock. The race of two worlds at Monza would be very much a good one to go to. I want to see the Meadowlands GP. Ooh, that would be interesting. Actually, that's a lost track video I need to do at some point. Toronto is expensive. Yeah. It was just too many hoops to jump through this year, and at some point, you have to look after number one, right? And I figured, what's the best way to kind of approach content for the rest of the year, and that's the way to do it. I will be 100% honest with you guys. I'm still not quite sure about Portland and Laguna Seca. I'll have to find a way to do it cheaply, but then also you're going to be involved with the airports and stuff, which I don't have a whole lot of confidence in right now. It sure was fun early this year where I could just jump on a plane, go to Florida, and fairly cheaply go to Florida and go to a test at Sebring. But it seems like the world's changing a little bit. Napa Racing Fan 927 says, "Will IndyCar have 3 500-mile races ever again?" I hope so. That would be nice, but I don't think we'll see it. Alex Favero says that 10 IndyCar is going to be a bidding war. I think you'll see a lot of people challenging for it. I think a lot of people are going to be trying to get that seat. We'll have to see. I don't know exactly. I think VK is the front runner. I think someone mentioned that Callum Ilott was also a possibility for that seat. But Hunko Salinger Racing is allegedly going to expand to 2 cars next year. So something's going to have to give there. There's going to be a lot of seats open all of a sudden. Especially if Alex Palou goes. What are the odds you hide in a team's transporter all the way to the West Coast? I guess I could do that, but maybe I'll hide in the 10 car. David Malukas to the 10. That would be... I don't think so, because HMD is pretty committed, and if you don't know what HMD is, it's David Malukas or whatever. That's David Malukas' dad, who runs the trucking company, which sponsors Dale Coyne Racing, and is expanding to 2 cars next year for Linus Lundqvist. So, no. I would say no. Ed Jones back to the 10. Takuma Sato to the 10. I don't think Sato will ever drive for Ganassi. I'll just say it that way. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this. It's 8 o'clock. I know I was 7 minutes late, but, I guess I didn't realize that I've never set up a Zoom meeting before. That was the first time I've done that. I've always joined Zoom meetings. I've never been the host, so that's why that took a little bit longer. I hope you've enjoyed this stream. If you did, hit a like on it. I hope you learned something as well, because that's why I bring in experts, because Adam Stern knows a lot more than I do about the business side of racing, so hopefully it balances out the racing knowledge with the business knowledge. And Adam's a great guy, and if you haven't followed him, be sure to follow him. So, thank you guys so much for watching. This has been David Land on YouTube. Subscribe for more auto racing content. You know I'm going to have it, and we're going to continue to cover and look at this Alex Palou situation, the 2311 situation, and the Ty Dillon situation over at Petty GMS. A lot of things happening in racing right now, and we're only halfway through the year. That's just how it works. Thank you guys, and we will see you in the next video.